Hey, how's it going? Brett, Useful Aircraft, back in the garage. When I go on the road, I like to bring something if I can, keep my my fingers in the action. I'm trying to remember how to fly these things. So one of the most recent toys I brought with me has been this. This is the Pavo20, Pavo20 Pro, I believe that it's called, Beta FPV. It's been a great quad. I've really enjoyed it. Sub 250, keeps us out of the weeds on a regulatory basis in a lot of the places that I go to. If you pick one of these things up, the only thing I'd advise you, I am having trouble sourcing props. Buy props when you pick it up. I've got some on order, but I'm on my last set of props, and some of these are of questionable airworthiness, shall we say. What did I do to this recently? Well, I'm just picked up the O4 Air Unit. Obviously, you've heard about these things. They just came out, released by DJI. You know, I love the fact 110 bucks seems to fit in the niche pretty well, being this quad, all said and done, is around 100 and some odd bucks as well. So compared to the price of the original O3 Air Unit that was mounted on this, that O3 Air Unit, as you know, is closer to, well, I don't know, I think it was 180 bucks off the top of my head. How does it change things? Integrating this onto the quad, integrating my 3D printed mount for the O4 Air Unit, shed some weight. It drops the weight by what I show to be about 30 grams. The Air Unit module, as it's its cage, is provided by Beta FPV. That comes in at 42 grams. The DJI O4 Air Unit comes in at about 9.5 grams, and then a couple of grams extra for the 3D printed mount that I made. It fits just on the same mounting brackets that the O3 unit fit, but the net effect of this is you see some remarkably increased flight times. I'm seeing flight times approaching 6 minutes, whereas previously with the O3 Air units, I was seeing flight times that were closer to about 4:45, tended to be my average. I'll show you some of the details on this. We'll talk about it. So that's a better close-up of it. That gives you an idea what we're looking at. Obviously, the antenna is offset. The reason for that offset is so that I can insert a USB cable. The USB-C port is back here, and if you see, I'm able to get a cable in and out of there, and you're in business. So there's no onboard storage. Well, stand corrected. There's no onboard SD card. There is onboard storage that allows you to capture, I don't know, half an hour thereabouts flight time, and it's accessible through that USB-C port. So if I put the antenna back in the center, you run into difficulty getting any plug into there. There's a small cutout for the wire pass through, so you can see the wires to your flight controller as come in this Pavo. They pass up and still allow the board to mount on the existing mounts that they were used for the old Air Unit system. Camera has a little bit up tilt. Obviously the camera is a slightly different system. It is adjustable there. You can see you can loosen those screws. That does have that 14 millimeter frame adapter in order to incorporate the camera system onto the quad itself. You still have access to the bind button. It's right there. You can press that when you bind these goggles up. Something to remember with this, I had to update the firmware in my goggles. I had to look up, and I believe it was a Madstech video, and thank you for that. The way that I ended up having to do it, I run an Android phone. You download the third-party DJI app from DJI's website, and then you plug it into your goggles, and it'll detect and sense that there's an update, and in which case connects over your network, downloads, I don't know, I think it was about a 220 megabyte package, and installs that. That updates the goggles. For the Air Unit itself, did that through the laptop and plugged it into the DJI software. You got to go through, you got to do the activation on it, and then furthermore make sure it has a matching set of software. Tested a couple of times, and while you're doing that process, have something like this. This is my small little fan that I made up with just some old computer parts. The reason being is the Air Unit gets hot and has a tendency to temp out. I have noticed that on a couple of occasions, and that's why, you know, I decided to build this mount and make sure that it had plenty of cutouts for airflow. It's hollow underneath there, so plenty of air on both sides of the board. And so far I haven't had any problems. Now that said, we are in the dead of winter out here. This is Arizona, so it has been somewhere in the 40s and 50s, you know, in the mornings when I've been flying. As this is installed, I'll show you. Turn this guy on and flip it into grams. The weight without a battery comes in at, that's showing 85 grams. Throw the battery on board, and if we can keep that all together, you get an all-up flying weight of 128 grams. So compared to with the old air unit system, which comes in at 41 grams, you know, they're saying that the weight of the new O4 Air Unit is, you know, sub 10 grams. I think they said 9.2. You know, add another couple of grams for the 3D printed mount, and you end up with a pretty lightweight system. The upside of it, you'll definitely notice the throttle position is lower for hover and forward flight. I do not tend to be as punchy a flyer as some of the freestyle and acro guys. I tend to fly this similar to most fixed wing aircraft, more in forward flight. I do fly helicopters as well, and knowing a little bit about helicopters, you're probably familiar with the idea of effective translational lift, which is that a helicopter in forward flight will be more efficient than it will be in a hover. When you bring a helicopter out of a hover and into forward flight, and the rotor system passes into cleaner air and out of its own rotor wash, you end up lowering the collective and reducing the total amount of power you're delivering into the rotor system, and yet you still maintain altitude. Not only that, now you're flying forward. The same principles applied to quadcopters, and so, you know, as I take this and put it into forward flight and start zooming around the yard or wherever the heck I am on the road, you notice that you're using less power in forward flight and will have longer flight times than you will if you're just simply hovering. Now, obviously, punch-outs and, you know, acro moves and stuff like that, it's not as much my cup of tea. I still enjoy it, but this is obviously not a frame that's built for it. So, you know, this is something I use more to explore the areas I'm going to. Please ignore the fact that my props are a little bit chewed up. If you order one of these from Beta FPV, I strongly advise you to pick up spare props. It does come with a couple of spare props, but in getting through and flying this, obviously going through some gaps and stuff that maybe I shouldn't have been in. I've chewed a couple of them up, and I'm all out of spares and waiting on some new ones to come in. So, you know, there is, it's not the smoothest rotor system in terms of for the quality of the video. I'll share some of the flight video as I just basically been flying around the yard, but all said and done, it's been a remarkable improvement to the quad itself, I feel. You know, for 110 bucks, it's hard to beat. It frees up another DJI O3 system, which I will still use in one of my fixed wing aircraft for longer range stuff. And I am very interested in experimenting with these O4 Air units, in particular to see about perhaps some other fixed wing builds and whatnot. This was just an easy and quick thing to integrate it with when I got home and found the package on the porch. You know, I think that it's, I like the direction DJI is going with this. Obviously, it makes it a little bit more accessible. It makes it a bit more affordable for everyone. You know, the $200 and $300 air units, or, you know, I think the new ones are $279. I don't know, for the O4 Pro. You know, this stuff just starts getting pretty spendy, and you know, it eliminates the risk and the fun and the, you know, the experimentation and handing it off to kids and you know, having a good time with it, you know, when you're worried about the cost like that. So, you know, I think small air units like this, I'm really excited about it, in the same way that I'm very excited to see what happens with OpenIPC and perhaps some of the new things that Cadix is talking about. If you're interested, let me know. I may put the files out there for this. There's no magic to it. It's just something quick and dirty I worked up in Fusion, and wanted to get something out there and flying. But I've been pretty happy with the way it works out. There's room, as you can see, this cable here to the flight controller doesn't have a lot of extra length to it, so there's a small cutout here that allows that to pass through. You know, the antenna is grabbed here at the back. The wire just comes up just like that. Yes, it is offset. It does have a tendency, when it's upside down in turtle mode, you'll have a better idea of which direction it is and how you need to recover. The camera itself is shielded and guarded by the 3D print, so barring a head-on impact with something, it tends to work out pretty well. But, you know, it's not a be-all, end-all. This was something I wanted to mash together. I did it in a, you know, in a morning and you know, printed it out while having a cup of coffee and threw it on here, and I've been pretty happy with it. So Again, if you have any thoughts or comments on it, I'd love to hear it. Hopefully I can get back to some fixed wing stuff. I still do have some work getting caught up from being on the road on my plate, but we'll get to that here in the future soon. Appreciate your time.